let's look at our next example for parametric curves. So, what curve is represented by the following parametric equations? X equals cosine t, y equals sine t, and I'm going to restrict t between 0 and 2 pi. So again, let's just stick with plotting some points now. Let's take t, and we're restricted to this interval, so let's pick 0, numbers between 0 and 2 pi, 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And you're going to plug these into your equations here for x and y. And when you do, you'll get cosine 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1, 1, 0. So now again, to plot points, we're just going to look at these last two columns here and plot those points. One, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, negative 1, and 1, 0. So we probably needed more points than this to figure out what the picture looks like, but I'm going to go ahead and fill in the picture for you. Maybe we should have chosen some more angles than we did. And here's what the curve looks like. Again, there's arrows to indicate the direction as t increases. And what does this graph look like? It should be pretty familiar. Maybe I didn't draw it too nice, but this is the unit circle. That's what it looks like to me. So can we verify that? Well, let's look. What's the equation for a unit circle? X squared plus y squared. So let's see. Let's plug in our parametric equations. X was cosine. Y was sine. We get cosine squared plus sine squared, and that's 1. So this curve can be represented as x squared plus y squared equals 1. And this is a circle, the unit circle. And you could describe the curve given by these parametric equations as you go once around the circle in the counterclockwise direction with, we should describe our initial point. The initial point for this curve was 1, 0. So I'm going to let's look at our next example. It'll be kind of similar, but a little bit different. We're going to change a little bit up. What curve is represented by the parametric equations? So it's going to be x is sine of 2t, and y is cosine of 2t. And I'm going to stick to the same interval I had in the last one, 0 to 2 pi. Well, if we go back and look at what we did at the end of the last problem, x squared plus y squared, and for these parametric equations, you'll have sine squared of 2t plus cosine squared of 2t. And because these are both 2t, sine squared plus cosine squared will be 1. So I know that this is still going to be the unit circle, but what's changed, so I could draw this picture here. It's the unit circle, but let's see what's changed. T So let's plug in 0. Now x would be 0 and y would be 1. So we're starting at a different point. X is 0 and y is 1. So we're starting kind of at the top of the circle. And now, because we're going to go with pi over 4 now, if I plug in pi over 4, you'll get sine of pi over 2, 1. Cosine of pi over 2, which is 0. So now I get this point, 1, 0, so it moved that way. Pi over 2, you would get the point 0. If I plug it into my parametric equations, and I would get -1. This point down here at the bottom. And then 3 pi over 4, you would get -1 and 0. This point right here. And then at pi, you would get 1, 0. So you get back where you started. And so if you graph this function from pi to 2 pi, you would just see that you get the graph repeated. So what happens is you're going to move twice now around. Move twice around the circle. And now it's in the clockwise direction with the initial point being 0, 1. Oops, sorry. This last point should have been 0, 1.